Hello, team, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics Greg Terry Experience co-stream extravaganza
Yes.
from both the UK and Ukraine simultaneously. Thank you so much for Greg, for agreeing to do this. He is in Ukraine, as you know, at some place somewhere, unbeknownst to anyone. OPSEC and all that. Greg, thanks so much for this.
Thanks, John.
How are you doing at the moment? You look a little bit more aggressively rested than I last saw you.
Well, I got my military haircut. By the way, when you get here, the first thing I'm going to do is take you to the barber.
I don't need that. I don't need it.
You're already ready. But if not, we get you a haircut. Yeah, I took Dr. Gertis and all the wonderful people. It's just amazing how much people care. They see what we're doing, how we're all working together. And I think as well, people are coming to the understanding that, this is not a drive-through at McDonald's, and it actually takes a lot of time to accomplish all of the things. And we've accomplished so much today. It's like crazy. So lots of things to share with you. I'm live on your channel, live on my channel. So we're golden for the update for tonight. Yeah, feeling good and ready to roll. So yeah, excited. Lots to talk about.
That's really good. Good news. Before we get into your experiences in terms of the work you're doing out there and the people you're meeting and the charity that you're doing, the equipment that you're doling out, we were just talking before coming on live about what Ukrainians think with regard to the Il-76 cargo plane that was shot down over the border in Belgorod the other day. Would you be able to just let me know what your thoughts were and what other people have been saying in Ukraine, Ukrainians?
Okay, so here in Ukraine, everybody knows this is the big story. You have covered it, and you've done a phenomenal job. Dr. Gertis has covered it, and I sent you guys a message. I said, okay, be slow on this one because this one from the inside is quite interesting. So we know that the Aleutian was shot down, and we know that it's on the ground, and you see all the videos and you see all the comments and thoughts, but I don't listen to any of that. Okay, so I don't believe personally being here any video that I'm going to see through some social media site, anything can be doctored. I'm going to believe the people I talk to here and the people I listen to here, or things that I see with my own eyes. There's so much doctoring of video, especially in social media circles, that we just have to be careful. So as of right now, in fact, I was just meeting with a guy. An hour ago, and we were discussing this, and he says, Greg, not sure. He goes, our country right now has not made the determining statement 100% that POWs were not on that plane. A couple of interesting things was this. Russia, for the first time, posted that they would be transporting POWs via an airplane. Now, that actually would make you lean toward, okay, POWs were not on the airplane, because whatever they say, most likely they're going to do the opposite. Yet we can't rule that out. I personally feel.
So you're saying that the Russians could be saying, did they say up front before the missiles were fired that there's going to be POWs on a plane?
They did, 100%.
And therefore that protects that plane, because it's like, oh, we won't shoot that plane. So then that's the Russian saying, well, brilliant, we've got a free pass for this plane
for the S-300s to be rolling.
Very clever, very clever.
But with that said, Ukraine has not come out and said point blank, whether Zelensky, or anybody else in the know, and has stated unequivocally 100% our troops were not, our POWs were not on that plane. And all they're saying right now is we're still gathering data. We're still gathering data. So until they say it, on this one, we're going to hold off on judgment. I personally feel that POWs were hopefully not on the plane, and this was a ruse. But until Kyiv says they were not, we need, because if it was, it's a lot of loss of life.
Yeah.
And we just need to be sensitive to that both ways.
My thoughts are pretty much exactly what I started with, which is whenever I commit to something like this, I commit with a probability assessment. And I hope that comes across rather than saying this definitely happened. It's like, here's the case for, here's the case against. Probability is going to be that I think it is very likely. And this is why intelligence analysts use terms like highly likely and this and that are modal. This modal language of probability, which highly likely I think is over 75%, I think, and then you got likely up to 75%. I mean, British and American differ on that slightly, and then 55%. And so they have these statements that refer to a percentage chance of probability of that happening. And so when I look at something like that, hopefully I don't go, that definitely happened. Or if I say that definitely happened, it's because the probability assessment is like 99.5%. So with that, I was like, okay, it could have happened, but all of the evidence suggests that there weren't prisoners on board, and none of the evidence suggests that there were. Now, then the next day I said, look, actually, there's more evidence now to suggest prisoners weren't on board. So, like, there's even more evidence. But what's weird is that, and as it's interesting that you say what you said, what's weird is that the Ukrainian, or not weird, the Ukrainian government and the official statements have come out and they've been kind of ambiguous. And
they've been very ambiguous.
Because that's ambiguous, you're there thinking, well, if you did have all the data that I'm talking about and expressing, illustrating to my audience, why are you not saying that? Why are you being guarded? And that is only what the Ukrainian statements have said that has led me to think, oh, I might need to reassess my probabilities a little bit more towards the Russians, although it's still overwhelmingly towards the Ukrainians, in my opinion. But that is just my speculation.
Secular Sakai, thank you for that super chat there. And I see your question. Is there any truth to the claim that Russia military officials were warned last minute not to board the plane, or is that a BS something? Here's the deal. You cannot believe anything that comes from Russian media. Nothing. So
that was from Ukrainian intelligence. So correct. It was Yusov that said, I think Andrei Yusov came out and said,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the claim was that there were two claims. Sorry to interrupt.
That they were warned not to get on.
They warned not to get on. That there were only 5 bodies in the morgue. Was what Andrei Yusov said. Yeah,
yeah. Well, in regard to bodies, and I know, and it, we could chase this one all night long. That's why I lean toward it not being, and hopefully not being. There's other things involved, but as far as bodies, I will take you to place. You will drive by places. I can't say any of that. There are going to be certain places that I take you when you are here visiting and making your run with me, that you will be very close to mass graves of Russian soldiers. So my point in saying that is this: bodies to them aren't important, even when they don't even take their own dead off of the battlefield sometimes. So I don't look at that. You would say, well, then they would just leave them strode out. No, they may grab them, take them. I don't know. I don't want to chase it. I'm just saying, I'm hoping that even tomorrow we're going to just hear a clear verbatim answer.
Yeah, because what's weird is that, okay, so as I just said then, well, the Ukrainians haven't given all this evidence to suggest it didn't happen, the sort of evidence I've been presenting in my videos. And you think, well, if they had access to that, which they do have access to that, why aren't they saying that? And of course, I think they're being very guarded and just trying to make sure that they cross the T's and dot the I's. But the flip side is, of course, if the Russians did have evidence of strewn bodies all over the fields, I absolutely guarantee that they would have been throwing them on the socials. Like if Russia, and this is for me one of the biggest sources of evidence that that it didn't happen as Russia are claiming, is that there is no evidence. And if so, there's something in philosophy we call an argument from silence, and sometimes it's valid. You say just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? So it still could have happened. The problem is when you absolutely would expect that evidence to be illustrated or expressed and you don't hear the evidence, then that is disconfirming factor for the event not taking place, right? So in other words, like as the example I always give is, if I get back after a weekend of being away, my neighbor says there's an earthquake at 7.5 on the Richter scale, and I say okay, and then I look around and there's absolutely no evidence for it. There's no shattered windows. I speak to everyone in the streets. No one knows anything about it. There's no buildings in rubble. Then all of that silence for that claim disconfirms that as being true, right? So when I look at the lack of evidence for for POWs being on board, and know full well what the Russians are like when they do have stuff like that at their fingertips, then that to me is a really strong piece of evidence that it didn't happen as the Russians said. Sorry.
I completely agree with you on that. I just think right now it would be in Ukraine's best interest to come out and make it extremely clear and not be ambiguous. On this one, I've given Zelensky, I'm a Zelensky backer 100%. I'll defend the guy. He's a great leader. He cares about his country. But on this one, he was a little bit ambiguous, talking about the value of every life and these types of statements. Just come out and say every life's important, but our guys wasn't on the plane. Okay, this is a bunch of crap. Just come out and say that, because I'm looking at it from a different perspective right now, and that is this. This is the exact argument that those in the United States are looking for to slow the support down for Ukraine. They want to show them as, see, they're hiding truth here. See, they actually shot their own plane down, and they're trying to figure out a story to, or their own plane to print the Russian plane full of their own POWs down, and they're trying to figure out how to make this look right, because this is the argument that will be pushed by those that want to limit or stop support for Ukraine, whether it's in the US or other places. So it's in their best interest. And I don't know where they're getting all their advice from. Maybe they should call you and me. But on this one, this one's simple. You need to come out and be point blank clear, because even if it was a snafu, even anything, be clear, because the world is looking, especially those that are anti-Ukraine, which there are a lot, are looking to discredit you. So don't give them any fuel.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think you and I should be ruling the world. So we would be making much better decisions than anyone else. Yeah, but you know what? Like, and somewhere in between, mate, we'll get it right.
Yeah.
So
Well, I just remind you of this. I'm going to be taking you straight to the front line, and going to be a lot of interesting moments there.
Yes, now, show us something that you've got from near the
well,
front
speaking
line.
About so tonight doing a couple of things, and I want to give everybody an update, because there's so many people in here, whether it's on my channel right now or your channel, that are supporting our joint effort with yourself, Dr. Gertis, Rick.
All the details in the description below.
Yes, and in mine. By the way, I did confirm today, Johnny, that when you arrive in Kyiv, where I'll be meeting you on that certain day and certain time, we will be having lunch with Rick, the Ukrainian, and I'm trying to get Starsky there as well. So it's so all of that's cooking.
What a banquet that'll be!
It's going to be a banquet.
Minds.
So here we go, guys.
I've zoomed you in.
About a week ago, I was in southern Ukraine somewhere, and there was a strike that happened pretty close to where we were. So you can go to the left a little bit. I was go all the way to Kherson. I was not in Kherson for this, but down in that circle area there, all in that area there. And we were, the town I was in was struck with a KH-101 missile. And here's what's interesting about this story, that now, days after all my OPSEC, I can tell you what happened. really strange event there. Now, of course, it's logical, guys. All throughout these regions, there's tons of air defenses. Well, not tons, but there are air defenses. There need to be tons that of course are targets, and they're in locations that are around places that sometimes are near populations. That's just the way it is for air defenses. Not always, but in this particular situation, an air defense was nowhere near where this missile struck. And this missile was a KH-101, and it actually dead zero impacted a large building that was being used as a residence for refugees out of the East.
So
And
that
it never made the news. None of you have ever heard of this, but I'm telling you, I was right beside it. And it was a home that was full of refugees.
and do you think that's where the missile was definitely aimed at? I mean, what could the Russians
I
possibly?
don't, I can tell you this, within kilometers around that, there were zero military.
Right.
You say, well, how do you know this stuff? Because I only work with the military, and Johnny's going to get to experience that. And not only that, the military, after they did their investigation, brought me this, which is actually a piece of the KH-101 missile. And they says, now, you know, Greg, we're not allowed to give this stuff to anybody, but you support us. All these people show this to the world and say, this is what struck that building. So this is a piece of the KH-101 missile that actually struck that building. So I'm keeping this, Johnny. I'll show it to you when you get here.
I'm going to be bringing along a chain because I'm going to turn that into a medallion.
Okay. Listen,
I'd be
if
weighted
you
right
will
down.
get, I'll tell you right now, if you'll get a big gold chain, we'll put a hole right here, put it around your neck, but you're going to have to rap freestyle.
That's not something any human being would ever want to see or hear.
Regardless, I'm just, this is the reality, folks. And I know that 99.9%, if not on this particular story, 100% of you never saw it on your news. I was not allowed to talk about it for days. But the reality is a missile struck, it killed refugees. It doesn't make the news anymore. And this is a piece of that missile. So very, very, very sad.
I am constantly giving the Russians the benefit of the doubt when it comes, or at least I add caveats to what I say, which is when missiles hit somewhere, you've got your circle error probable. And so that means that, say, the CEP of a missile is 300 meters. That means that if that's designated a precision guided munition, then it can, let's go and put this on a map, then it can hit, and you'd think that those KH-101s are better than CEP of 300. But if you've got CEP of 300 meters, right, that means that 50% of the missiles can hit within 300 meters of that spot, right? So, that means you are, let's look at 300 meters. What's that? There we go. So here we have there's 300 meters, right? So if it's designated a precision guided munition, it means 50% of the missiles can hit anywhere in there, right? So even then, like if it's CP of 300 meters, then even if it is within that 300 meters 50% of the time, it could still hit anywhere that isn't that. Now, if you're trying to hit one particular small building or something like that, then you're actually just hitting anywhere around there and not necessarily hitting a building. But then 50% of the missiles can just go anywhere else. But you would assume they don't generally, but it means they can do to be designated precision guided. Now, when you're saying, well, there's just no military stuff around there, then again, it's a probability assessment that the Russians were aiming for that and not anything else, because there's nothing else around.
So
or it's a really
crap
missile.
First of all, let me just tell you about the place right there where you're doing that demonstration. And that is the Ingolets River that comes up off of the Dnipro. We deliver aid to every village on that river, every one of them, all of them. And at some point, you're gonna be gracing that region. where you're dropping stuff, and just wonderful people there have been just wrecked this whole war. Now, one of the reasons I know that there was not military there is because I was actually with the military delivering some aid to their location, and they were nowhere. It was it was miles away. I'm not a kilometer
Yeah.
guy. It was miles away. So even with error, it's just hard to imagine that much error. That was a direct hit on that place. It wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't a deflection. It was a direct hit.
And then you start thinking, okay, so how did that come about? What was happening there? Oh, that's what I was looking for. Snigurivka
Snigurivka.
there, which is where Mark and Olena's parents, who they are living in Canada at the moment. I've had them on for an interview before. They are
Yeah, well,
British, Canadian,
I work in Snigurivka. I'm going to take you
Ukrainians.
there.
Brilliant. Well, I could pop into to say hello to the Olena's parents. There you go.
I'm not telling time and date. Nobody even knows the date you're arriving, but I'm taking you to Snigurivka.
Interesting. So the question then becomes, why did they aim at that place? Were they trying to hit a refugee establishment? And then you think, well, that's a bit of a waste of a missile, and that's not really going to do them any good. So therefore, we're talking about what's the most plausible explanation for the data. Again, it's this probability assessment. And for me, it would be like, well, that's just poor intel. Like maybe on the satellite, they're seeing lots of people around there going into a place like that and thinking, well, that's vaguely close to the front line. So rather than refugees, could be military troops, so let's hit that. And maybe it talks to the fact that they don't have very good satellite imagery, they don't have good enough resolution, and they're aiming for stuff with poor intel. I mean, either way, it doesn't look good. Either they did it on purpose, which makes them bastards, or they did it accidentally, which makes them fairly incompetent or not having good intel.
It's but it's par for the course, because there's just so many random. And Johnny, if it wasn't for guys like you that are plotting this and mapping it, and you're doing your daily frontline assessments, and when I'm back in the States, I take a quick look at the front line, and then I talk about some stories that are happening. But here, I'm my job's to do the human side of it, to get to the real story. I'm right here, and I'm going to be here. It's different than what I do when I'm back home in the States, but this happens every day, man. Every day civilians are killed in this war. You may not see about it, you may not hear about it, but it happens every day.
And that's why I had a bit of a rant. Was it this morning or yesterday? I forget, because I rant so often. But I had a bit of a rant about the audacity of the Russians to call a United Nations Security Council meeting to talk about the Il-76 cargo plane getting hit. And you're like, hang on, you're literally killing civilians every day and have been doing that for 2 years. You have invaded illegally another country, and you have absolutely obliterated civilian infrastructure left, right, and center. How dare you? How very dare you call a UN Security Council meeting over one of your planes getting shot down? It's just it beggars belief.
Well, let me ask you this. How is it possible that Guterres can even shake the hand of Lavrov?
Yeah, I did, and I did watch that straight away.
I mean, I have an issue with that.
Yeah, you could tell he was uncomfortable, and he tried to make it go really
He
quickly
did,
and then usher him.
but
His
still.
body language, but still, I'd be like, yeah, that's a tough one, because you're supposed to be like UN blah blah blah. But I would be like,
pop that prepper comment back up there again. It's a really good comment.
Sorry.
I love how you're providing us access to Ukrainian places that matter, and you're bringing your YouTube peers like Jonathan along for the ride to find real depth of understanding. Listen, Jonathan's bringing me along for the ride, although I'm going to ride. He going to get a ride here in Ukraine. But prepper, thank you for that. But it's the reality is, it's just good people coming together for the right thing.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, I'm getting prepared, Greg, because first of all, I've got a vacuum packed set of thermal socks. I think I showed them to you, but they're see everyone. I am getting prepared, and what turned up today, right? Is
Oh, wait a second. Is this man bringing colorful socks to a war zone? Okay.
Well, you won't see them because they're going to be covered by these bad boys.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I've just bought myself.
Oh, look at you, you stud.
These are like winter hiking boots, and they're zip up. Now I've got progressive multiple sclerosis, and I can't feel my fingers. So doing up laces is a real issue for me. And I was like, I ain't doing up like all those like toggles or whatever on hiking boot laces. That's not going to happen. So I found these where I can zip up my snowshoe boots, and just thank you to all the people that have allowed me to get prepared in this way. I hopefully, and I've got a battery pack. You know, things are happening, Greg. Things are happening.
They are, and you know, Johnny, people. So I'm preparing to leave for another run, and that'll be a run prior, you know, another big run prior to your coming next month sometime. And I'm already telling the guys, I said, listen, I'm rolling back around again. In fact, today, let me just throw this in here because so many people are supporting. Tomorrow, I'm going to put a video out because today we purchased, we, meaning all of us, my community, Dr. Gerdes, Rick, Johnny, all of us together, we purchased the stretchers, the specifically requested stretchers that are North American Tactical Rescue, a very high level. So I've actually purchased them today. Thank you for all helping. Metal detectors today. Tomorrow we get them done. Additionally, we're working on another piece, like a gift we want to add to the metal detector. And I discovered this through Twitter through Harley out of UK, who is here all the time demining. And he has a source for when it's a certain type of mine that is everywhere, a Ukrainian soldier can use this little thing to actually deactivate it and make it safe for them. So I'm working on all of us together. We're going to, if everything works out, purchase some of those to add to the metal detector so they can detect and de-arm if it's the particular kind of mine that this thing is suited for, which is a majority. So I'm working on that. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Additionally, I you know, this one was tough. This one was very tough. Today, so let me see if how to say this the right way.
Things don't always work out.
Things do not always work out. That's really good. So one of the units that we're working with, and you guys that watch my videos, and I invite you all to watch them, but you would have seen me with this group of heroes within the last 7 or 8 days. And this morning, I woke up to a phone call, and it was Zhenya. And Zhenya said, man, I've got bad news and I've got good news. What do you want first? I said, well,
Always
man,
go the bad.
Let's go the bad. He goes, some of our buddies were killed last night. I said, excuse me? He goes, this particular group at this particular zero line, one of the most dangerous places, he goes, they were killed last night. And I have yet to confirm which ones of them it was, but it was all those guys that were in our circle that we were giving aid to that you guys had purchased. So it was a little tough. That one, you know, to be quite honest, Johnny, I hope you do not have to experience that. Unfortunately, being on the front line as much as I have, this is now my 6th month here, I've had to experience that quite a number of times. And that's the hardest thing. It's the worst thing when you have sat down and had a bowl of soup with a guy and you've given him something, a tourniquet or whatever, and then you get the message 3 days later that he was killed. That's tough.
I hope I'd never have to
I
meet
hope
anyone that dies fighting a war, fighting for their homeland. I mean, it's horrible.
with
I
that
would imagine.
said, I don't want to interrupt you there, but with
No.
that said, Zhenya said, and the good news was about all of the sleds and the metal detectors and the stretchers. They were all coming in for us to purchase. So we purchased some today. We'll finish purchasing tomorrow, and then tomorrow night I'm going to show you guys video and all that. But he says, "Man, do you think we could budget $200 for a book of memory?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "So Ukraine has what's called a book of memory, and it's very high end, where commanders that are on zero lines typically have one. When they lose somebody under their command, they then do a picture and a page and they write about them, and that book is history, like forever. And that's where they document that hero." And I said, "Oh, that's a dumb question. Buy it right now." He goes, "Their commander says they do not even have a book of memory. They just didn't have the resources to have one." I said, "Well, they do now. Buy a book of memory." So we're going to take them the book of memory, and it's really nice where they can write out the guys that lost their lives, stories and pictures and memories to never be forgotten. So it's
Yeah,
powerful, man.
yeah.
It's
It's
powerful.
just, it's incredible to think that people just put themselves out there to say, I've talked about this before. Like, I like to think I would do the same if I was able-bodied, but I don't know what my thoughts would be if you said to me, right now's your chance. You need to go to the front line where you've got a percentage chance of dying. It's easy to say, yeah, I would do that, but actually, it takes a hell of a lot of guts for anybody to say, I am going to do that, and I'm going to go to the front line where I'm going to put my body, my life on a line,
Mhm.
and there's a very strong chance that I'm not going to make it. And the longer this war goes on, the higher that probability is that I'm not going to make it. It's incredibly brave, and to meet people where you think, I don't know, next time I'm here, Greg says, Greg, next time I'm here, I don't know whether I'll be meeting you again. And that's just like, I don't think that when I go to the shops and buy,
Correct.
a bottle of wine to have on my Friday evening or something. I don't think, oh, I wonder if Doris behind the counter is going to be there next week when I get back. So it's just, yeah, it's incredible.
It's just, I try not to use this or overuse it, but it's just reality, guys. And now let me tell you something about your adventures to the front line. This is what's going to happen. And, Johnny, we got you, buddy. If you're having a tough time, some big old burly guy's going to pick you up and carry you. So you'll be fine. But when a soldier
I
will,
always thought you were burly.
I won't be picking you up. I got guys to pick you up. But when a soldier will look at you and say, "I had this happen tonight." It wasn't a soldier, but so every time we do a run, we then reload like we're doing now. We rest a couple of days, and we also service our vehicle every time. It goes into a shop where they're working on it and making sure everything's good, because the front lines are very dangerous and you do not want to have a vehicle issue. So it's always serviced. So Johnny, when we do pick you up, it'll be fully serviced and ready to roll for that loop. But I was with this hero who services military and volunteer vehicles, and he looked at me and goes, "Man, it's like shocking that you would even come do this." He goes, "To go where you go and to try to tell the truth and help people the way you do." I said, "Well, hey, I got a guy from London. He's coming. He's got multiple sclerosis." He goes, "Man, they're heroes. Y'all are heroes." I said, "No, we're not the heroes, man. The heroes are in the trench right now. Now, we may be a little brave, but we're not heroes. They're the heroes. We're trying to
For
support
sure.
the heroes.
100%.
So, but when you get to the zero line, Johnny, and the hero looks at you and he says, "Thank you for coming to my country to help us tell the truth, to help us raise funds, to support our war. If something goes wrong, you're going home, not me." And that's what they'll tell you, because it's not your war and you're not dying here. You're going home. I will take care of you. And let me tell you something, it'll mess you up when they tell you that.
Yeah.
You better bring a lot of Kleenex, bud.
Yeah. I'd just like to say, you know, as we've already said, and a lot of these are yours as well as mine, because we're doing a co-stream here, so they come up together here. But I'll tell you who. So thank you, Secular Sekai for
That's a good
helping
guy
Greg
right there.
out there. Thank you so much to Rick for providing a super sticker. You are really kind, Rick. That's very generous of you. This is from Cynthia, says, "I can't wait. I feel like it's me that's going." The reason I put that up is that what I like most about this YouTube channel is that when I spend so long on YouTube threads, I can't begin to tell you, but there are such a good bunch of people on the threads who are just coming together for the right reasons, and it's a lovely YouTube community. And the fact that someone says it feels like that's me going, I think is testament to how we've all come together on this channel. I can't speak for your channel, and therefore, you know, when I'm experiencing something, you guys feel like you're experiencing it as well. And I think that to me makes me really happy that that this channel is something more than just another YouTube channel. So thanks for saying that. John Larkin here for Greg, saying, right, buy some and keep yourselves safe. I don't know exactly what he was referring to, but I think it comes in a little while, because he then says, "Oh, meant the mining stuff."
Gotcha,
so
buddy.
you,
John, gotcha. Tomorrow, we're dealing with that manufacturer, and they're in Kyiv. So yes, thank you.
So that's very kind to donate to that, and thanks again to Rick. Thanks for all the videos creating awesomeness. Well, I don't know about that, but if you guys feel awesome, then that is awesome. So cheers, mate. Also, Remy Stevens, thank you very much for that super sticker. Really kind. I'm just now going to bring in, so thanks, Remy, another Canadian-based human being, Mark Bizcu, and his wife Olena. So Mark is a guy who is. Olena is her parents are in Snurivka. Towards
okay, this is the people, Mark here, whose parents are in Snigorivka.
Olena's parents, I think, are. I don't know
so
where
his wife's parents are in Snigorivka.
Yeah.
Okay, here, you will hug them.
Okay.
Period.
Because I think they've gone back there as well. So they went away. They went possibly to Mykolaiv.
If they're in Snigorivka, you will hug them.
So towards the Kyiv Banquet Fund, and he's so generous. I was going to thank him anyway for something on the back channel. So first round of vodka, Ukrainian vodka, on us. Keep us posted on your arrival in Snurivka. You will be welcome with some good food. Thank you all for all you are doing, the both of you. Much love and respect, Mark and Olena. And Mark was already, generous. He's always generous. He's such a lovely human being. So thank you, Mark. And that would be great if we do get to see Olena's parents. Right, there's a couple of Bob for the Book of Memory. Every day I hate the dictator more. Yes. That is something I think we can all agree on there. So that's another John Larkin helpful. Greg, Jack Ray gifted 5 memberships. Really appreciate that, Jack. Very kind. And Paul, again for you, Greg. I'll chip in for that Book of Memory too.
Thank you, guys.
That's really kind from Norway.
And that's being purchased in the morning, so you will see tomorrow video of that. And JDO, I saw your comment there. So yeah, with Jonathan's software, he has the ability to push my super chat information and his. So John Larkin, thank you. We've got that Book of Memory and mining stuff. Paul, thank you. And yeah, we're trying to watch all of it. Thank you, JDO.
Yeah, so I think that covers all of them. So thanks for all of that, guys. So yeah, generally, are you like Boyd? Are you in a decent place at the moment, like psychologically yourself, with
Oh yeah,
obviously all the experiences?
well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. So the group of guys that were killed, I really hit it off with. So
Mm.
you'll experience this, Johnny. There'll be some, well, for you with that British accent, you're going to hit it off everywhere. But um,
Yeah, which is lucky because
some,
I've got a face for radio. But there you go.
I don't know how to explain this, and I know that there are a lot of probably military and veterans in here, or military people, or you know, it's impossible. This is how I say it best. It's this cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. And when every block post, every coffee, every gas station, every side of the road, helping a soldier fix his vehicle, every frontline position where we go and eat or spend the night and help them, you bond, man. And it's going to be really difficult for you to even leave the country because you form such a bond because you're in a dangerous place and you really become brothers and sisters. There's a lot of ladies there fighting too. Um, and I'll tell you, the guys that I had to hear about this morning being killed, these guys are pretty special to me. They're with all that said, there'll be certain groups of soldiers, Johnny, that you get to that you'll go like, oh my goodness, this is like my son. You know, you'll feel
Mm.
that real closeness. And I spent a lot of time with these guys, and it just, yeah, this one was tough. This one
Yeah.
was tough.
Goodness me. Thank you so much to Mertzi for that super sticker. And for Brian Ivy, there's a really kind Mertzi, by the way, and for Brian Ivy as well. And I think too much about Brian Ivy because sounds weird. He's a Republican viewer, and everyone knows my political leanings. But I often want to talk about Nikki Haley. I find really interesting at the moment. So Nikki Haley is running against Donald Trump and has still kept herself in a race. And just to do a little political sidebar here,
Okay,
Nikki
let's do
Haley
it.
had this kind of weird, well, not weird. Nikki Haley's kind of, I guess, given a choice, like, do you stay in or do you drop out? And she decided to stay in, even though she's not going to get the nomination, right? However, like, there is a really interesting use for her still being there, providing people an alternative for Trump, and maybe an alternative for that is republicanism for Ukraine, which I think is really important, and keeping that narrative up there. And there would have been this advice to her, which is, right, you can either kowtow to Trump and not criticize him and go down the route of some other people, or you can come out and say, right, I'm staying in the race and I'm going to hammer him. And if you see Nikki Haley now, since the New Hampshire primaries, she's been on fire. Like, if you see her on Fox News, where Fox News are giving her the hassle, and she's fighting back and going, no, 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 no. And it's absolutely brilliant. And getting out when she's doing her speeches the last couple of nights, she is going for the jugular of Donald Trump. And I find this really interesting. It gives me a lot of joy to see that actually at least they're presenting some kind of choice out there for Republican voters that aren't just this kind of isolationist worldview, that there are people out there who are Republican, who are right-leaning, but also understand the importance of geopolitical importance, like your good self, Greg, the geopolitical importance of Ukraine. Like, for me, this is so freaking important that I just beggars belief that there are people that are actually against Ukraine in the Western world. I just can't compute that. So,
Well,
but whenever I think about that, I think about Brian Ivy. Anyway, sorry.
let's do a sample right now, just of like our channels. Okay, so it's interesting when you look at your channel, my channel, Dr. Gertis, Rick, or whoever else that that we work with. We have viewers and people that I feel like are a part of a family now, to be honest with you, across all these channels that support, but they come from so many different backgrounds, and they get it. They get it about Ukraine and the geopolitical importance hitherto. If I put that hitherto in the right place. But listen here. If you think this is over, Sorry. Historical fact, any person that has won Iowa and New Hampshire has never won the presidency. So this will need to break a trend. Secondly, South Carolina is vitally important, and it's going to be extremely interesting what happens in South Carolina. Secondly, or thirdly, this would be it's January the 26th.
Yeah.
I don't
Early
think we can
days.
predict what's going to happen for breakfast in the morning the way
Yeah.
our world is unfolding. Of
Yeah.
course, we're not living in the 80s and the 90s anymore. Um, there's a lot going on. There you go. I see Vigo Holmeson's comment there. The litigation that's ongoing, the war in
But I think that's a
Ukraine,
really good
our
point that
southern border.
the more that Nikki Haley stays in, the more Donald Trump will stay on that MAGA right, which means he can't then adopt that center ground because she's there. So then that's a really interesting dynamic that goes on further into as the months and months progress, that he has to stay out there. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's kind of like this. There are some in the United States, and you need to talk to Dr. Gertis about this. But I'm a guy. Yeah, I actually
This is correct, by the way. Sorry, carry on.
I actually agree with Paul there. Um, I know it's really hard to say, but I think Biden will beat Trump if it
Yeah,
comes down to that again.
I think
But
so.
we'll see. We'll see. I mean, no predictions or anything, but just we're a long ways from there. But with that said, the word is divisive there, and Paul uses it well. When you have somebody that, for example, Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley, extremely famous basketball player, but that's not why he has a voice and a position. The reason he has a voice and a position, and most of you probably not sports fans in the US, but he's on a program that basically he is on the camera every night to a large audience talking about basketball. They watch the NBA games. It's on TNT, but he's always very politically oriented and talking about different issues and hot topics and all this. And he's African American, professional basketball player, had political aspirations. He's from the deep South. He's from Alabama. And he came out and said, it's very interesting that we had all these good candidates, and really, you got Trump over here, you had Tim Scott, you had you have Nikki Haley, you had all the others. He goes, but now I'm seeing this stuff like Trump was giving this speech in New Hampshire, and then Tim Scott just coming out, and I like Tim Scott. He came up and took the mic and says, what about Haley? He goes, forget Haley. I love Trump. Well, Barkley demolished him, and I think rightfully so, because it was just like, okay, do you forget where you were 1 week ago in this battle trying to bring a Republican view to America that touches all people? And what happened to that? So the word divisive is golden. We are a very divisive, divided, fractured country right now.
So it's really interesting. There are, for those who are British in the audience, in Britain, this has happened with the Conservative Party, and there's a division in the Conservative Party between like what are basically hard Brexiteers, people who really want to come out of Europe, Eurosceptic, but also just really gone to that right wing, and something called the One Nation Tories. Now, One Nation Tories in the name is like it's that more of a unifying conservatism and it's just really interesting that same division that you see in the United States in the Republican Party is also evident in UK Conservative Party. I just find that an interesting parallel.
Well, I'm going to quote somebody here that's pretty smart. They usually wear a sweater when they're waxing eloquent. Dr. Gertis just wrote in the chat somewhere. You'll probably see it. He says, in the long run, I agree with this completely. No, not that one. He said, what we really want is a Republican candidate and a Democratic candidate that support Ukraine. That's
Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Not somebody that's in the sheets with Vladimir Putin. That's it.
yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely agree. Definitely, for me, I've become a real one issue voter of late because it's because I just think this is far more important than people realize. Like when you start joining the dots between Ukraine and Russia, and then China and Iran and North Korea, and then when you start joining the dots with the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, and when you start thinking about energy independence or energy dependency,
Mhm.
and you start thinking, okay, well, then you're talking about your own domestic economies and the cost of stuff and inflation. All of this is connected, and we are living in an international world, and therefore we need to kind of care about what happens internationally, because this is our world. It's not just our countries, but it's our world, and we need to take care of each other to eventually, to be selfish about it, to take care of ourselves.
Johnny, I've been hammering that for years. Of course, I'm coming from many times a biblical perspective, but at the same time, a political and geopolitical perspective. If people can't see, which the guys in here can because they're here, but
Mm,
just in general, that all of this is connected, then we've got a lot of work to do
mm,
because we do live in a global world. We live in a global society. The the internet, digital currency, all of these things that have evolved over the last few decades have brought us to that time where something can happen literally, and instead of it taking 3 weeks to find it out, you can find it out as it happens, which never happened in history before. All of this has the ability to change people's viewpoints and mindsets like in a whirlwind. We live in a world that is so microwave driven versus oven, where we can't bake, we can't think about things, we can't process, we can't figure out, okay, what's logical about this, because it's so driven on emotion, it's so driven on advertisement, it's so driven on money that we can't even reason as human beings on, okay, you know what, this is logically connected, this is not good, we need to stand for what is right. And it's important that we try to keep those things in the forefront of people's minds, to not make knee-jerk reactions, to evaluate what's happening not only in your little world, and I don't mean that derogatorily, I mean in your village or your town or your city, but it's all connected, and we need leadership that understands that.
yeah, totally agreed with you there. I didn't say thank you to Paul, by the way. Thank you for that, Paul, and thank you to William G. Atheist number one. Well, I'll challenge you for that. Do not count Nikki out. Remember, everyone once said Trump could not win at any level. Yeah, it's still open, but I think it's fairly obvious who's going to win, but it is early doors, early doors.
Mhm.
So, what other news or views, maybe from inside Ukraine, you get it? What are things people worried about, talking about? We've obviously mentioned
Yeah, I
the
can I can tell
cargo
you
plane.
stuff right now. Okay, so if you go back to your map, I'll tell you where it's extremely difficult right now. And it's I'm not giving away any secrets here, but this is just reality. So up in Kupiansk, and I know you know the map well, it's brutal. And do you see that forest right there? Yeah, a lot of fighting happening in that forest right now.
By St. Keithcote. So this
A
has been
lot.
fairly stable. But stable doesn't mean things aren't happening, but
No,
the
it's
Ukrainians have been able to stop the Russian advances. And I think the Russians have lost an awful lot. Although I don't know about last week, but certainly like 2 and 3 weeks ago, things were very bad for the Russians. But in being very bad for the Russians, it means they're putting an awful lot of
it's not about the line
pressure.
moving there, it's
Yeah,
about the battles that are happening that you really can't mark
yeah.
because they're in the forest, and
Mm.
it's extremely brutal there right now, extremely.
There's been a lot of movement around this Krokmalna. We'll talk about this area.
North side of Siversk,
Okay,
heavy
coming down to
battles.
Kursk. Yeah, so this is
Hmm.
the Bilorivka seems to be back on the
Yes.
agenda at the moment. So there's a lot of activity there, and in the forest area, I think Serobiansky Forest is still pretty active. And then by Berestova and this southern Bilorivka, because
Hmm.
this is Ukraine, so you can't have a line on a map without having the same named town on that line.
That's
So,
correct.
so we got Bilorivka, and both are fairly active, or at least it's active near this southern one I was
And
telling you.
we, not where your marker is there, but if you pull back, we will be supporting and visiting guys in that area there.
Yeah. Yeah, so this
Hmm.
one of the areas. Let's just get the roads on there. There we go.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
So this sort of semicircle there of
Hmm.
Konstantinivka, Druzhkivka, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Liman, Rantisversk. That kind of semicircle is an important
It's the
artery.
most. I think one thing that will be surprising for you, Johnny, it's one thing to look at the map and aerial and read about it, but once I get you on that circle, so I call that the circle road, and that's bouncing off the road that comes basically from Kharkiv down, pushing down towards Donetsk. It runs in behind Bakhmut. It comes through Chiguev there. It goes through Izum. You will be at different times in all those areas at some point in time. But that circle road there, I think what's going to be surprising for you is when we do make that circle and we go Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Druzhkivka, Konstantinivka area. I think it's going to surprise you how big that is, meaning the population base. And those are not small towns. They are big industrial factory towns, and most of the factories have been completely destroyed. But it's going to surprise you how many people actually at the peak, would have lived there. Those are like, you're talking about a wall right there of defense and a wall.
Yeah, what I've said so many times is uh, people don't realize how unrealistic it is for Russia to do anything more in this war in terms of big gains. So when you talk about um, Bakhmut, right? So Bakhmut is
Hmm.
this area, and it took them a year basically to take that. So it took them a year to take that. And some people are saying, well, Chaziv Yar, just back here, is even better defended than Bakhmut.
Hmm.
They've had time to dig in and blah blah blah. So could that take a year? Well, when you look at Konstantinivka and how much bigger, when you look at Druzhkivka, when you look at
Hmm.
Kramatorsk, when you look at Soviansk, you think, well, that's another 6 years there. Do you know what I mean? And like that's just
Yes.
this area. Like if you're looking at what uh, what Russia have achieved or kind of haven't achieved in the last couple of years since their initial take loads of territory straight away because the Ukrainians weren't ready for it. But if you think when the Ukrainians got themselves sorted out, how little they have achieved, then you're thinking, well, what are you really hoping to do here? I mean, you're not getting to Transnistria. Come on, that's not really going to happen. I don't know.
Well, I agree with you. But you have to remember that their mission is not short term. And
Mm, mm,
Bakhmut is gone.
yeah.
Okay. You say, well, what size was Bakhmut? Okay, Bakhmut was Artemivsk, but Bakhmut was a beautiful, had a little river flowing through it, a nice river walk that looks like something out of San Antonio, nice buildings. It was the home of a tremendously large winery, that it was a very affluent town there in Donetsk region, and it literally now is gone.
Yeah.
And it had a population of 100,000 people. It's gone. So that's what they want to do, is completely eliminate it. Now, what can change this is what could change the speed? What can change the speed is Ukrainian mobilization failure, which is possible. Secondly, international failure for support, which we are witnessing. Hopefully, it doesn't continue. Because I'm going to tell you, man, Ukraine is low on soldiers, very low. And they're even lower on munitions.
Yeah.
Very, very,
And
very
so
low.
this is one of
Desperately
the
low.
big divisive thing is like, what is Zelensky doing about mobilization? And so this is Pierre Dupont, who's going to be coming along for the ride. The people of Ukraine are such a beacon of light in these darkening times. Keep feeding and shining that light, everyone. P.S. I hope you like hot dogs, JP.
Pierre, do you prefer Oko or Wolk hot dogs? You legend, Pierre, so you know the story. You'll learn, Johnny. You'll learn.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So yeah, this is the big challenge for Ukraine and the big challenge for Zelensky, because he has to manage a country, right? And a country
Yes.
involves the economy surviving so that you can provide tax revenue to provide for the war, right? So you have all the infrastructure still working. So it's this balancing act between, right, okay, we could just mobilize every human being possible and send them to war, but then you've got, what are you fighting for? Because there's literally no country left. So there's some kind of sweet spot. Now, if it goes too hard on mobilization, then people leave the country, and you have that issue. We've got to a situation where everyone who wants to join the war effort has joined the war effort. So now you're dealing with people who haven't prima facie decided to join the war effort. So you're going to be somehow kind of coaxing them to mobilize. So it becomes difficult.
This is why I said that Ukraine has to solve the mobilization issue.
Yeah.
For example,
So
let me tell you a real story today. I had to jump in a taxi today because we're getting our vehicle service. I just jumped in a taxi real quick, and I'm talking to the taxi driver. And of course, I'm speaking to him in Russian. No problem. We're talking back and forth. And of course, he knows I have an accent speaking Russian. And he goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from America." He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "This is my second home, and I'm here supporting the war effort and supporting Ukrainians and standing for truth and trying to be eyes and hands and feet on the ground for a lot of people around the world that want to help." He goes, "Man, that is just so awesome." He goes, "I'm giving everything I have to help the war effort. I'm doing my job." And we were talking back and forth. You talking about the economy. I'm doing my job. I'm paying my taxes, but I have my cousin there on the front line. I have my brother on the front line. I'm constantly sending supplies, sending everything I can to help the war effort. And so we're talking. I said, "Well, man, that's important. That's important. And I'm happy you're supporting that way." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "But because of that, I'm actually more effective by supporting them. I can buy them ammo. I mean, hello, I can buy them bullets working here and send it to them Nova Poshta. I can buy them food. I can do all of this that they can't get there." But he goes, "But people look at me and think I'm a coward." I said, "What do you mean they think you're a coward?" He goes, "Because I'm a taxi driver and I will not leave the city limits." I said, "Okay." I said, "Are you scared of the block post?" Because I know. I said, "Are you scared of the block post?" He goes, "Absolutely. There's a high chance they're just going to grab me, pull me out of the car, and mobilize me."
Wow.
And I said, "So you're not a coward?" He goes, "No, I'm a patriot. But am I better by them grabbing me and throwing me in a trench, or am I better by supporting my brother, my cousin, buying them bullets, supporting them? If I get there, I can't support anybody." I said, "You know what? I understand that." And we had a good conversation. But those are things that you're not going to see a story about that. You're not going to see that on the evening news.
That's a sort of interesting insight I would like to delve into when I'm out there. Actually, that the kind of the ideas of people's motivation and people's rationale for doing things or not doing things, and how they feel about that, how they feel about themselves. Like even with the soldiers, I'd like to have a conversation like how do you feel about your prospect of not surviving past the last year? I know it's a difficult conversation. How do you feel about that? What are the things that go through your head? But then what do you feel when you think about Ukrainians back at home who aren't doing what you're doing? Those difficult conversations I think would be quite eye-opening. But yeah.
I had this stream's turning out to be awesome. I had a very interesting lunch meeting today um, with some guys, and they raised an interesting question. Okay, and of course they're massive Ukrainian guys, and they said, "What I'm concerned about," and I had never even thought about this, Johnny. And this is good for you to think about geopolitically, and Dr. Gertis, I know you're in here to think about it. It's like. Um, They said, Greg, I don't understand and really know what to expect or how to help our country. Let's say the war ended tomorrow and then all these soldiers came back
Mm,
because I'm not sure what's going to happen when they get back and our country and the way things start to click back into normalcy. He goes, I think it may be a challenge for us how to
yeah, it
get
will be.
our wounded and our psychologically,
Mm.
those struggling, how do we get them back into society? We're not even thinking about that. And it was interesting, it kind of goes along with your topic, talking to a soldier and asking, what are your thoughts about this or that? But
I think post-war it's going to be so challenging for so many people, just in terms of that psychological rehabilitation across the board for
yes,
like that trauma that so many people will feel in. But also in terms of children, there's an awful lot of damaged children who have not received, consistent education, consistent parenting. You will have like the damage you can do to children at early ages is really is very easy for it to go wrong. And there's going to be thousands, tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of children around Ukraine who have had their childhood interrupted or the childhood debilitated by the experience of this war, and children who might have been on the sidelines anyway, behavior issues, cognitive issues, learning issues. That is just massively exacerbated by a country going through war that are going to struggle to be able to do things like that. So war hurts people and hurts places and hurts systems along the front line and close to where the war is, but the war affects people in so many other ways, much further back into the country, in ways that can be generational. And I think it's those kind of things that will go under the radar initially, but will leave Ukraine picking up the pieces for many years to come.
Johnny, for all you guys out here that are in Johnny's family, all of our family together, Bud, you take some time and get your mind square. Okay, and I know Pierre will help you as well. But when we go to some of these places, the very topics you talk about, for example, children, how they're affected. Well, Bud, when I take you to places that are right there, and you see the children that are left walking down the streets, maybe holding a granny's hand or their mother's hand, you can see it.
Mm.
It will, you can see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm hoping to so I've got a camera. I bought a camera off eBay. It went wrong straight away. I've just sent it back for a refund. And then I bought the same camera new, but on really good offer. I was like, because these things are expensive. And I was like, so I've bought a camera, and my mate, who is a photographer, is a hobbyist, but he's a really good photographer, is coming around this next week to tell me how to use a camera. I've got a bit of an idea, but basically, for all the bells and whistles. And my intention is, between us, we'll get enough footage together and some kind of know-how and ideas to create a documentary.
Yes.
A series of documentaries, and I'll edit them and put them together that hopefully will tell some kind of story. I need to get into my head the objective, rather than just recording stuff, although there is a lot of value in just recording stuff and people to put their own kind of ideas together about it, but to create some kind of record, and to say something to matter out of myself going to Ukraine that is useful.
Let me, people know where I go. Okay, I can, all my OPSEC stuff. We will be running OPSEC because it's much more dangerous now. Signal was hacked by the Russians. A lot of data was very, very, very important data was stolen. Not from, I'm talking in general. We delete all of our stuff, but it's here's a sad part. I can walk down the street in Henderson, and Johnny, you will get used to it. But when you're walking down the street in Henderson, and then you hear boom, zzz, okay,
Yeah.
it, don't. I mean, I'm saying this for a point.
Yeah.
And you look across the street and you see a kid that doesn't even flinch because they hear it every day.
Yeah.
That's the reality of the war that, many times you don't even think about. It's now become just life. And in some of these places, it's extremely hot and active. And just to see people walking, and I'm talking civilians, and not even flinch.
Yeah.
I don't flinch anymore. Okay, you will, the first one, but it took a month, and then there was no flinching. It became normal sound. Once you see that, then you start to, and I know you're very complex in your thinking, and way deeper than I am. But when you start to think in the layers of how much effect, I have an uncle who was a Vietnam hero, and his life was destroyed. Very difficult for him to function. And
Yeah, I mean,
that was
like
a
Sarah here or Sarah saying my ex couldn't sleep in the same bed as me once he came back from 2 tours from Afghanistan after he tried to kill me multiple times in his sleep. It was awful, and he went back because he was scared of us, or scared of obviously something happening. So yeah, some people can't cope very well with reality after that kind of trauma.
Yeah,
It's
it's and
tough.
the opposite side of it, as I was explaining to you, is just when you look at the kids and they don't flinch.
Mm,
I mean, sometimes, man, it's loud and they
mm.
don't flinch. I saw some other comments in there. Somebody said, make sure you listen to the air alarm or pay attention to the air alarm in Hardekiv. Listen, guys, we pay attention to every air alarm, and for sure, we'll do everything to ensure utmost security and safety.
Mm. Thank you so much to Tim Vermogen. Vermorgan, gifted 10 memberships. That's very kind of you, Tim. And I'm really happy to see Mitch back in the zone. I haven't heard from Mitch for ages. Like my Tippling philosophy channel has just gone by the wayside. I'm so busy at the moment and obsessed, and just and it's difficult because there's only so much brain space a human can have and time in a day. And let me tell you, in fact, I've got to go fairly soon because my partner's going to kill me, I think. I'm not going to make it to Ukraine because of some domestic
Well,
dispute.
you've got to go. I need to say, American in Ukraine, why Ukraine, popping in to say hi before I hit the sack.
Oh, I
I,
will. Yeah, I'll stay a few minutes. I've got to say, yeah, and just a
I
massive
wanted to
thanks
give
to
him a shout out. Yeah.
Yeah, to Mitch Mazarol. JP, this is to help you and Greg fight the good fight. Hoping you have a safe journey to Ukraine. Mate, you are an absolute officer and a gentleman. Thank you, Mitch. It's great to hear from you. This is one, I've been contacted by a few people who are in Kiev actually saying, look, I'm in Kiev. I live in Kiev. I watch all your stuff. I find that interesting because sometimes I wonder, are you Ukrainian and you watch my stuff? I know there's a couple of Ukrainians that I think watch my stuff. You're thinking it's interesting that you go to someone in the UK to find out about what's going on in Ukraine, but hopefully I'm the one-stop shop where you just get a bit of everything. But obviously Ross Phillips is not a Ukrainian name. Hey John, you meet with your fans for a beer in Kiev, so I don't know what the reality of having something like that with OPSEC happening, but who knows? I'll be speaking to Greg. And Paul, again, this is for Greg.
This is very important. Even on Johnny's channel, whatever, if you guys are donating at certain times for like a certain project we're working on, yeah, if please let me know, and you can even go to the website and just hit contact and say, hey, that donation came from Peru. great, because we're coloring in the map, and every time we go, we show the soldiers the map. So yep, do that.
Yeah, and thank you, Paul, on for the great donations that you continue to give to the cause there.
Yeah,
That's
he's
amazing.
incredible.
And I meant to get, I was, because I've got to draw this to a close fairly soon. I did want to get Darren on from Prof. Gertis, so I'm really sorry. I was just expecting, this has actually gone on longer than I was expecting, but it's always good to speak to Greg, and I could speak for another hour at least, mate. It's just, it's going to be.
We're going to have plenty of time to speak.
Yeah, that'd be true. That'd be true. So I guess like it just remains for me to say, and sorry to cut this one somewhat short, but it remains for me to say, look, thank you so much to all the people who've been incredibly kind on these. This thread today. Someone saying they donated from Spain, but they're from the
Got
UK.
it. Spain's Leslie, thank you. Spain's colored.
I don't know. He's from the UK, or so. I think that's a he. I always get confused with Leslie.
No, Leslie's a lady.
Oh, really?
That's okay.
But yeah, anyway, from the UK. So who knows how you interpret that? Just a massive thanks. I'm just going to say from both of us to Secular Sakai, Rick,
yes.
John Larkin again, Rick again, Rami Stevens, Mark Biscu, as ever, John Larkin again, Jack Ray, Paul, Gouda Deberitz, Mertzi, and Brian Ivy, Mertzi, Paul Gouda Deberitz again, William G, Tim Vermorgan, Mitch Mazarol, Paul Gouda Deberitz again. So thank you to all of those people. You are incredibly generous.
Hey,
Greg.
John, yeah, I'm coming. Yeah. I'm coming. I'm just showing you. How are your neck muscles as we're closing out? How are your neck muscles? She gets pretty heavy, buddy.
Yeah.
Listen, can y'all believe you're going to see Johnny in this Joker right here? Yeah, I got my.
It is going to be
my real Ukraine patch on this side.
Oh, nice one.
So yeah,
I know. I need to get hold of. I am promising JR, who does a mapping, like something like either a signed flag or a patch or something like that that I can bring back for JR.
Brother, no problem.
Yeah. Good old JR. Johnny Christensen, thanks, mate. Really appreciate that. Danish love there. This is my other. I've got Swedish love, Nordic love, and Danish love. They're my three bands that I'm starting. And Tanya Rindenko, awesome Canadian love there. Oh, that's my fourth band.
Mercy, he will have a plate carrier as well. Don't worry.
And David L as well. That's really very kind of you, David. Super generous, and all of this will help me to get to Ukraine and to help Greg with everything he's doing, whilst also hopefully doing something that's useful to humanity as well, as what already will be useful to humanity in helping Greg. I just wonder how helpful I'm going to be.
We're one team, and you're going to be massively helpful, man. I'm excited. I'm really happy. I love for people to experience this. I mean, not a lot of people, but for you, like, and I'd love to get Dr. Gertis, but he's got 6 kids and a university to deal with, but and he's a long ways from here. But just those that support Ukraine the way you do, and the way Dr. Gertis does, it's just going to revolutionize your streaming when you get back home.
Yeah,
that's the
it's
best.
Going to be interesting to see how my mind is affected. And yeah, lip gloss. This makes me laugh. Jonathan's badass. No, I'm not. Imagine him in a helmet. Badass overload. That's literally the most.
You'll
unlikely.
See him in a helmet.
There's no badass overload going on there at all. And just for those that care, Mertzi says better start working out now, Jonathan. I have actually been on I've got a treadmill. My parents-in-law, I'm not married, but my partner's parents gave us a treadmill a couple of years ago. Sort of gave it to the twin boys as a kind of like keep fit boys, COVID and all that. But really with a view to me using it, and I am using that a lot at the moment to try and make sure, because it's great because my walking, if I have those things at the side, I can walk really nicely. It's just when I don't have things to hold on to, I'm like, there's a t-shirt you can get which is I'm not drunk, I've got MS, and I think I might just like wear that. I need to buy one of those because I do think people probably think I'm drunk a lot, but
I'm really enjoying the haters in your chat. It's fun. Можно он понимать по-русски? Если понимаешь, говори со мной, пожалуйста. Пожалуйста. Yeah, I enjoy it. Oh,
have some of that.
Have some of that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, look, thanks so much, mate. You're an absolute star. Keep up the amazing.
You are too, buddy. We love you.
Amazing work, and thank you to everyone else. Last words to you, mate, about anything in the world, but experiences or
no, we're good. Tomorrow, guys, I'll have a video up. So many people in here have donated and given, and we thank you. And we are transparent, and everything we do, we're going to show you, and you see it. Ruku for ruku, hand-to-hand deliveries, but stretchers, metal detectors, book of memory now, all these other things, purchasing, getting ready for our next run. Of course, medical supplies that are critically in need, we're purchasing here. Of course, our air shipment is en route. There's so much happening. But yeah, tomorrow I'll be showing you a lot of that. So thank you.
And thank you, Sebastian Swainsbury, for that. Please be safe and put this to some form of medical aid to the brave people on the front line. Absolutely. And I will do that forthwith, which is another nice word for you, Greg, there. So thank you to Mr. Greg Terry of the Greg Terry Experience, legend of Ukraine. Thank you to everyone in the live chat and everyone watching, Legends of the Multiverse.
Yeah, both channels. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful community, and it's great to see you guys come together. Awesome. Okay, dude. Well, take care. I will speak to you soon. And you guys, I'll speak to you a lot tomorrow. I've got a video that's due to come out later tonight that I've already recorded. It'll come out at some point.
I think you probably talk in your sleep.
I probably do, mate. You'll find out. You'll find out.
No, I'm putting you with fish. You're sleeping with fish.
I've heard enough about Ukraine. I'm here already, mate. I've been here for ages. I don't need to hear about it in your sleep. Just shut up. Yes. So no, I don't. I don't think I do. I better ask my partner. For anything you think useful, thank you so much, Stephen. Thanks for your great work. Hope you will enjoy your time in Ukraine. I hope I will enjoy it, but it's not like I also need. It's not about enjoyment. It's about fulfillment, and it's
correct.
Making a difference.
Correct.
But thank you so much, Stephen. It means
I do need to shout out one person, Ricochet. Yes. He's jumping in now on my channel. He's been with me from the beginning, and he's a veteran, and he's been such a big help. He's always making sure my OPSEC is right, and he will smash me if it's not. So thank you for everything, Ricochet. Yep.
Legends.
All right, buddy.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Take care, Greg. All the best.
Good night, all. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.